Have you noticed that this show doesn't have any commercials? I'm not selling you diapers or vitamins or smoothies or gasoline. That's because I don't want any corporate sponsors telling me what I can investigate or what I can say. Instead, you are our sponsors. This is a production by our nonprofit, the Informed Consent Action Network. So if you want more investigations, if you want landmark legal wins, if you want hard-hitting news, if you want the truth, go to ICanDecide.org and donate now. All right, everyone, we ready?
Yeah! Let's do this.
Action. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are out there in the world. It's time to step out onto the high wire. And for all of you here in the United States of America, I'm sure, you're cleaning that barbecue right now. You're getting the coolers all ready for the big celebration, our Independence Day tomorrow. Very exciting. And so hope you have a lot of fun. And I hope you're in one of those parades out there and making everyone aware of all the great stuff that this movement, whether it's MAHA or medical freedom or Moms Across America, this is that moment we should all be celebrating our right to free speech, our right to stand up for our rights, and really our right to body autonomy. We have been taping the Highwire. We've been doing this show since the very beginning of 2017. It came on the back in late 2016. I started the nonprofit, the Informed Consent Action Network, after I traveled the country with the documentary Vaxxed, which was all about vaccine injury. I would say at that moment it was the most effective documentary that had ever been made to discuss this connection between vaccines and injury, and specific this issue of autism. But over the years, as we continue to fight, and we used ICANN to do these investigations, we sued the government where they were hiding information we knew they had, or saying that they had information we knew they didn't, and we sued them about that and said you're not allowed to lie to the public. We have forced transparency with wins against the CDC, NIH, HHS, FDA. Just been an incredible amount of work that we've done there, and we've been reporting on it all along the way. But as COVID was coming, and this warp speed vaccine was happening, it played right into the work that we had been doing. And to be very, very honest, I had been saying, as I was speaking all across the country, really around the world on this vaccine injury issue, that one day they're coming for you. One day this is not going to be about the kids. Don't be fooled. The pharmaceutical industry, I would say in speeches, is not the most powerful lobby in Washington because they want to just get the 3% of the hippie unvaccinated kids, crunchy granola moms kids vaccinated. That wouldn't be the payoff for them. Remember, they're outspending oil and gas 2 to 1. We fight wars in the Middle East for the amount of money that oil and gas pushes into our government representatives. What is pharma buying that's twice that, has twice that value? I said they're coming for you. There's going to be a forced adult vaccine program, and the moment that happens, this entire conversation is going to change. And I even said it to people on my staff. I said it's a bit like Braveheart. All through Braveheart, there's the Irishman kept saying, "It's my island. They're with me. Trust. They'll stand with the Scots." And, of course, Braveheart's like, William Wallace, like, okay, whatever, you're crazy. But there's this moment where they're standing up against the entire British Armada. It's covering the entire mountainside. They're completely outnumbered. And then they wave those flags. And all of a sudden, all the Irishmen leave the side of, the British and come over and join the Scots. And, of course, it's a victorious battle. I was saying, just like that, I will believe this moment that they demand an adult vaccine mandate. Suddenly, people will wake up. People will say, wait a minute, not me. It will be as though we've waved a flag. And now it's not just about babies. How many of you don't want to be forcibly injected? And so that's what COVID really did. And I also said what this is going to do for this conversation of vaccine injury, really, unfortunately, is where vaccine injury has been in infants and children that cannot speak for themselves, can't say, I was healthy yesterday, I was jogging down the street yesterday, I was filing my taxes yesterday, I was a marathon runner, I was a ski racer, I was a mountain biker, I was winning gold medals yesterday, and today I'm paralyzed in my bed. Babies couldn't do that. Even though the parents had all that knowledge, they said, I know what I saw with my own eyes. It was easy to say they were crazy. It was just easy to say, well, you just wanted to believe your child was healthy. But I said, once vaccine injuries start happening in the adult community, to those people that remember what they were doing yesterday, those doctors that were healthy yesterday and know damn well what Guillain-Barré syndrome is, or transverse myelitis when it starts happening, or neurological disorders, that is going to be a totally different story. That will probably end up being the biggest vaccine injury story of all times. And that is the story that has been captured by one of the most powerful films I've ever seen and that anyone will ever see, and that is Follow the Silenced, which is a documentary about those adults, those teenagers, those people that are able to speak for themselves that were injured by the COVID vaccine. It happened right before our eyes. They've captured the interactions with Peter Marks at the FDA because some of them were even in the trials. React 19 has a big part to do with this. Matthew Guthrie does a brilliant job directing it. Mickey Willis is fantastic as the executive producer on this. This is a film that you have got to see and probably should see it 2 or 3 times. I hope you're sitting with your friends. I hope you brought some people in for this experience. This is a game changer. Follow the Silenced.
A round of applause for Calais. I did my part. I got it. I got mine because I wanted to protect myself and my family. Ultimately, I did it because I was terrified that I would catch COVID again and die. My happy, predictable daily life came to a screeching halt. I can no longer cook, clean, or even pick up and hold my baby for too long before my body begins to shake uncontrollably or is thrown into excruciating amounts of pain. My quiet life has suddenly become very public. And with that has come so much ugliness and bitterness from people who know just the surface of what's happened to me after this vaccine. I have been called a liar and a fake, and have even been told by the ER doctors that this is all in my head. I'm hoping to share my story in an effort to give others going through what I'm going through a voice and to show them that they don't have to be afraid. So for everyone suffering, for everyone being pushed, guilted, and frightened, I see you, I hear you, I believe you, I love you. I love all of you because that is the only thing that is going to get us through this. Thank you, guys.
Drug companies have spent $4.5 billion on lobbying and campaign contributions.
In today's world, Big Pharma decides whether you live or die, and that makes them dangerously powerful.
Mr. Chairman, it is a sad fact that we regulate industries such as machinery and automobiles far better than we do those that affect what may be placed in our bodies.
Pfizer received the biggest criminal fine in US history for mispromoting medicines and for paying kickbacks to compliant doctors.
They're getting paid by the pharmaceutical industry, by the very companies that they're supposed to oversee and to protect us from, that they're supposed to oversee, that they're protect us from.
Well, as far as doctors go, you've certainly seen the best.
The best don't exist anymore. The best are dead.
Well, I don't know about that.
You're the exception, Harry. I didn't mean you. Harry, am I going to die?
I'm afraid so.
My name is Brianne Dressen. I am a 41-year-old preschool teacher.
Everybody, clap, clap, clap. Eyes on the teacher, hands in your lap.
And mother of 2 young kids.
I love you.
I love you.
I met Bree in college when we were both at a climbing gym at an outdoor club event. I saw her climbing with a friend and I thought she was really cute, and we got to talking and set up a time to climb outside together, and a little while later started dating.
He was really kind of a quirky guy when we met.
That's the world's greatest dad.
Even though he was very structured and regimented, he still would go jump out a plane with me and go skydiving or do all these weird trips.
Anytime we could be outside, that's what we've always done.
I married my best friend, I really did.
We have a saying in our relationship, and it's no matter what. I choose you, you choose me. As long as we were together, we would get through everything. No matter what.
It was very scary because they were preparing us for something very bad.
U.S. health authorities tonight say there's no doubt we'll see more of this. Americans sick with the coronavirus who need to be kept in isolation.
I had never been in that circumstance before, so part of the preparation was some of us were elected to go to Rochester to do mass casualty training.
Yeah, I would say it was pretty terrifying to need to be in close proximity with patients that might be giving us a disease that could potentially be fatal.
The clinics closed, the operating rooms closed. Hospitals just became emergency rooms.
I've been through 9/11, Metro North disaster, flipped over tour buses. This is absolutely the worst.
As a physician, I certainly have a little bit more medical knowledge than some in the lay public, but everyone was instilled with fear. So was I.
Tonight, the death toll nationwide has now reached more than 16,000.
During COVID time, I became a news junkie. I never turned my television off.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight, we're becoming crushed under a tidal wave of unfathomable numbers.
The United States now has the most cases of any country in the world, more than 83,000, which means it has surpassed.
Yeah, so when COVID hit, we're like, you know what? We're going to rise above this. This is going to be a big deal. We're going to teach the kids that it's great. So the kids were stuck at home and they hated learning from me, even though I was a teacher.
Nothing's happening.
What's happening?
Nothing's happening. It smells like brown sugar. Let me smell this other.
How did you get on top of the car?
But we really wanted to make the best of it, right? I mean, it was 2 weeks to flatten the curve.
Infectious disease experts call it flattening the curve. Should this fail, people in this country, perhaps people you know, will unnecessarily die in a system that can't handle.
Stay home for 2 weeks, right? That's where it all started.
Brianne actually went out and collected N95 masks and took them to the hospitals so that the staff would have masks to protect themselves as they were treating COVID patients. We wore masks everywhere we went, we used hand sanitizer, we stayed away from everybody. If the CDC said do this, we did it.
Today I want to update you on the next stage of this momentous medical initiative. It's called Operation Warp Speed.
Dozens of pharmaceutical companies and biotech firms now working simultaneously on a cure.
When a COVID-19 vaccine is made, it'll be big news.
Dozens of companies in multiple countries racing to be the first to create a COVID-19 vaccine.
Pfizer could soon take a critical role in the COVID-19 battle.
Moderna is performing the first human trial for coronavirus.
AstraZeneca says it's enrolling 30,000 Americans in the late-stage clinical trial and another 20,000 outside the country.
In your hands will rest the final success or failure of our course. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
So my friends are healthcare workers, and they found out about the clinical trial, and they said, hey, do you want to sign up with us? And I said, yeah. I qualified as high risk because of my preschool teacher job.
There is no laughing in preschool.
In normal times, it would take 10 to 15 years to get a vaccine to market. Now some companies have reached the clinical trial phase in a matter of months.
I had been accepted into the trial, and then I didn't hear from them for like 5-6 weeks, and I didn't realize it, but at the time it was because the clinical trial had been put on hold because there were issues with AstraZeneca in the UK.
Another drug company hits the pause button on its clinical trial.
AstraZeneca is investigating what caused a patient to have a serious side effect.
There was a case of transverse myelitis and a case of MS.
The patient suffered from a rare spinal inflammatory disorder.
This disease interrupts the messages that the spinal cord nerves send throughout the body, and this can cause pain, muscle weakness, paralysis, sensory problems, or even a bladder and bowel dysfunction.
As soon as the trial resumed, I was in the first batch of people that got contacted to come in.
Dr. Robert Frank says today, for the first time, 7 children between the ages of 12 and 15 enrolled in the Pfizer vaccine trial and were given a first dose.
And first of all, I'd just like to thank you very much for volunteering for this trial, because without you, we never could do this very important research.
Knowing that a vaccine was coming, I was excited. I was like, okay, this is going to end it. I wanted to be the first in line.
Our kids actually came to us with it and said, you know, hey, heard this at school. Some of my friends went ahead and signed up for it, and you know, it looked good. We're pro-science, pro-health, you know, we're educated people, and we want to help.
My name is Maddie DeGarry. I'm 13 years old. I used to do a lot of sports, but like before I got sick, and yeah, I don't know what else to say.
So what are the possible known risks? First, as I mentioned, is the reactogenicity from the vaccine. What we have seen is that if people are going to get symptoms, they seem to have fatigue, headache, and fever.
The side effects were essentially the normal side effects from like a flu, having the flu.
If you think about like when you had a bad cold and how you kind of feel like that for a day. And a lot of people said, well, why do you get those side effects? And I think about that really as showing that our body is responding well to the vaccine.
Right now I'm feeling pretty good, but even just a few minutes ago before I had a snack, I was like, holy cow, this does not feel right. But I don't know, I'm feeling a lot better now. My arm's just a little bit sore. Yeah, that's about it. My ears were ringing for a little bit. I had a little bit of a headache, but the snack fixed it.
It is a swing county. Trump won it last time. We expect it to be very close. This is what you can see. This is today's vote and what we're waiting on here, obviously.
Later that night, my vision went double, and it sounded like I had seashells on my ears, so sound had become distorted. And I remember looking at my husband and just saying, something's not right.
And starting to drop those results right now. It's because of the massive investment people.
It's until after the second shot that we really saw things get bad quickly.
So what's going on right now?
I'm shaking.
What's wrong with your arm?
There was electrical shocks going through her body. You couldn't touch her back.
Her fingers were white, they were ice cold, swollen.
I called the nurse line, told them what was going on, and they directed us to go to the ER.
I mean, it was the scariest thing I've ever seen, but I honestly, at that point, I'm like, okay, she's in a trial, they're gonna take care of her. Like, that's what happens, you know, things can happen, they will figure this out, she will be okay.
in the morning. The sensitivity to sound and light were still there. And that was the last day that I taught.
The first thing we did, because the contract said, if you experience any problems, call the test clinic, right? I run her back up to the test clinic. They do an exam and they say, you might have MS. So you need to go to a neurologist and get that looked at.
They, said, hey, you're just reacting to the vaccine. This is normal. And they sent her home.
Maddie. Hey, babe. Days and weeks had gone by after several trips to the emergency room. Well, now she started having syncope. She was passing out. Breathe. Come on, Maddie. Maddie. Breathe. Okay. Breathe. Maddie! I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm sorry. I think we might go back to the hospital today, okay?
My blood pressure is off the charts. My heart rate is off the charts. My skin felt like it was on fire. My body was on full-on attack mode. The neurologist came in and sat down on my bed and said, COVID's a really hard time. It's a really stressful time on everybody. We see it here in the hospital, it's really scary. And I think maybe what happened is you got really excited and you got this vaccine and you just kind of had a mental breakdown.
Maybe you have anxiety. Why don't you just go home and try to relax? They blamed all of this on anxiety. If you look at her charts prior to this, she never had anxiety in her charts.
They took the adverse reactions to the vaccine off the table. Not another visit from Children's had said COVID-19 adverse reactions.
So I was sent home after a diagnosis of anxiety due to the COVID vaccine.
Oxford University, partnered with AstraZeneca, is expected to release results of its trials shortly. Sources say it could even be the first to be rolled out.
Today, the Oakland Coliseum will become one of the largest mass vaccination sites in California.
Any way out of that situation was positive.
I dropped everything and ran as quickly as I could and got in line.
I thought I was really doing something, that I happened to be one of the first.
I just figured that as Americans concerned about others, we would just do it.
My dad's 60 years old. He's not in the greatest health. Everybody has somebody that relies on them.
I would have been devastated should I have gotten sick without trying to prevent something.
We all get this wonderful vaccine, we all move on with our lives, and we're done.
6,000 people can be vaccinated here behind me on a daily basis. They don't even have to get out of their car to get their shot.
After the first shot, as soon as I pulled out onto the street, my entire face just started tingling.
My face started burning and my vision became a little blurred.
I started getting a headache. It was just a very odd headache. Never had a headache like that before.
Then that pain began coming back up into my chest area.
It literally ripped down my arm. I never felt anything like that in my whole life.
I started feeling tremors, twitching, like it was vibrating inside.
I guess the best way to describe it was like a cell phone inside my body, buzzing and zapping.
I knew I was blacking out, and there was no way to stop it.
Burning in my ribcage, spine, pain in all my joints.
My hips felt like somebody had a ratchet strap around my waist, getting tighter.
I remember kind of coming to, sitting on the couch in our office, wondering why I'm shaking so bad.
2 hours after the vaccine in my left arm, the tremors started.
36 hours later, had nausea, vomiting, and then started having trouble breathing.
The chest pain started and my heart rate shot up. It was really, really high.
I was like on the floor, like nearly having a heart attack.
My feet went numb, my hands went numb. I could not feel my hands or feet. My legs were tingling.
I could feel my body and everything shutting down.
I tried to stand up and my legs wouldn't move. And then I pushed myself off the table and then fell. No response from my legs.
You know how when you hold a baby up and if you let that baby go, how they just, that's what happened.
2 o'clock in the morning, just before 2 o'clock, I woke up and I couldn't move at all.
I can't feel my legs. I can't feel anything.
I realized at that point something bad was happening.
So this started out with tingling in my arm the day I got the shot. So it was pins and needles in my hand the very first day. and then it turned into blurry vision, so I couldn't see straight. The symptoms just kept stacking. Felt like I had acid going up and down in my veins, and it fluctuated with my heart rate. Right now with my problem, I have to sleep, and I have to sleep a lot, and it's really, really hard for me.
The kids couldn't be near her, they couldn't touch her. The sound of my pants walking by, the swishing of my pants was too loud. If you tried to talk to her, she couldn't say more than 1 or 2 words before just becoming overwhelmed and telling you to go away.
This week marks 4 months of sickness, so I'm doing a lot better, but still a long ways from being independent, so. But, so that's gonna be my week. And then it turned into this incredibly super sensitive sound issue to where my ears are ringing so bad all the time that even just me talking right now is making my ears ring.
She was removed from my life, my kid's life, from her own life. Just completely isolated, hollowed out, suffering. And we weren't getting any answers. It all changed the day of her shot.
Brian is going to get his vaccine on Wednesday, so that'll be good. Because if he got COVID, there really wasn't going to be anyone here to take care of him.
We'll just give a good old Nick. There he is. Hey, buddy. I know. What are you doing? Come on, here. Here. This is Nick. Yeah, he's a retired standardbred racehorse. They were racehorses at one point in their careers, right? And now you guys are all retired. And that's the thing, they've been part of my life for so many years. I just can't imagine ever not having them, you know? My husband and I had this barn built in 2006 when we first moved in here, and put a lot of work in this place. This was my life dream, you know, and it's home to me. It's where I feel most comfortable. It's my sanity, I always say, and to think that this may be gone someday is pretty difficult for sure, you know. But if this is what I have to do, it's what I have to do, you know.
We really need to make sure that we're providing a consistent message to our team, and we need to make sure that that's also in alignment with what our health system is asking us to do. And so since our last conversation,
late February, early March, as they started getting more readily available to the public, that's when we really started seeing odd things in the emergency room and in the hospital ward.
Patients who are coming in with brand new arrhythmias. They had never had an arrhythmia before.
All I really remember is being laid down in the back of my vehicle and put on a stretcher. They sprayed nitroglycerin under my tongue, and one of the EMTs said, okay, that's enough. That's all I need. Send him to Highland. He's had a heart attack or he's having one.
We're now sometimes seeing upwards of 7 heart attacks in our emergency room in a month's time in my small community hospital. What is the catalyst for that change?
Like 20, 30-year-old people, perfectly healthy, no comorbidities, very active coming in, and they've got a blood clot in each leg, one in each side of the lung, covered in DVTs or PEs and blood clots. That doesn't happen. There's no cause for that. And then you look at their chart, and there's no reason for this to happen. But when you go to their vaccine history, sure enough, you'd see, oh, they took the shot a week ago. They took the shot 2 weeks ago. Every single one was like that.
So our hospital system is a vaccination center. You sign a kind of a contract with the CDC. One of the things that you agree to is that you'll report any adverse side effects to the vaccine adverse event reporting system. This was enacted to assure, once you released it into the full population of people, that there was an early warning if there was problems with the vaccines. I didn't know anything about what VAERS was, what it stood for, what our responsibilities were. That was never educated as part of the vaccine rollout. So I started learning how to report these patients on my own, and it was through a lot of trial and error because it's a long process to report a patient. There's so much information that they need.
Acute myocardial infarction, anaphylaxis, coagulopathy, COVID disease, death, Guillain-Barré, Kawasaki disease, multi-system inflammatory in adults and children. I just had one yesterday. Myopericarditis, narcolepsy, vaccine during pregnancy, seizures, stroke, transverse myelitis, and all these others. This is what you're supposed to be reporting, these conditions. So why is it when I'm reporting these conditions, I was audited? I'm doing exactly as the federal government is asking me to do.
Yes, I agree. I understand your position. I'm not discouraging you from doing that.
This is a tote bag of all of my patients. They just keep coming. But all of these ones here are the ones that I have officially reported. This stack of patients are patients that still need reports to be done. I would say it may be close to 200 patients in this stack. So when my hospital told me I could no longer report on patients that weren't my own, I had to stop reporting.
From what our risk team is telling us is that really you can only be reporting on the patients that you are providing direct care for.
And I said, well, are you going to tell the providers that this is their responsibility? Are you going to send out some email, do some education? No. But I said to them, you're a vaccine center. You signed a contract with the CDC that said you will assure that reports be made. You're not doing that.
We want people to get the vaccine, right? We want people to understand that on the whole, this is a very safe vaccine.
I'm in administration, so I thought as an administrator, I would be taken seriously. Not with this, not with this. And it makes me very sad that all of these individuals are never going to have a voice, because that's what this represents, no voice for them. So these patients are all going to be unknowns and unreported. It's really sad. And many of them were COVID positive patients that were fully vaccinated that went unreported. Some of them are deaths, and they're just going to stay in limbo forever.
I mean, for lack of a better way of saying it, we sort of, we toe the company line. That's part of our responsibility is to be supporting the mission of the organization. And when we think that we're,
I was to support the vaccine effort, period, end of story. That is our mission. Never once when I was doing all of this stuff did I ever think you'd be unemployed 6 months later. It's crazy.
It's important to know that in general, a report made to the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, or VAERS for short, does not mean that a vaccine or specific batches or lots of the vaccine cause the side effect. If you've had a reaction following vaccination, contact your healthcare professional and report it to VAERS at vaers.hhs.
We had asked the principal investigator, hey, did you report this to VAERS? Because people kept asking me, and he said, we report it to Pfizer, who reports it to the FDA directly. We don't go through VAERS. I'm like, okay.
When I asked for documentation, they would just ignore me. When asked about, did you report this information about the adverse side effects? And they said, yes, they reported it to their sponsor. Okay, can you give us the information? I would like to know what you reported. No, we can't do that. We already reported to our sponsor.
The doctors that have seen her so far have not found something where they thought it was research related, is what they all were telling me.
One of the first ones says related to the vaccine trial. So, and I know it happens within 24-hour period, all this went down. So I find it hard to believe that you're trying to steer away from that.
They kept saying, these are pre-existing conditions. This is something else. This is not from the vaccine. The vaccine doesn't have these side effects.
When she was admitted, her blood sugar was at 42. She had lost 20 pounds, and then it got to the point where she couldn't swallow liquids.
Maddie.
They stabilized her. That's when they put the NG tube in.
We kept begging and pleading, get us some help. Help didn't come. Looking through any sort of scientific articles to try and figure out what do these symptoms mean. One in particular that was written by some doctors at the NIH. They published an article that said, we need to look out for neurological conditions after the COVID vaccine. These might be potential, so we need to watch for that. So I reached out to them and I said, I saw your article and you're right. And to my surprise, they responded right away. And within 3 days of my email, we were on a telehealth visit with several of their neurologists. And it was pretty eye-opening because it seemed like they were already aware.
When the scientists chose to create the COVID-19 vaccine, they used an mRNA platform. And that mRNA basically hijacks our own cells' construction equipment to create a protein. And that protein they chose was spike protein.
Don't anyone get confused by this. Messenger RNA is not a bad thing. If we didn't have it, we wouldn't exist. It's the middleman, the messenger between what we are made of, this DNA, and the proteins that define us as this unit. The problem with this is the bastardization of the concept and the tomfoolery with nature itself, genetics. According to the manufacturers, they used the spike protein from SARS-2 as the template. The mRNA template encodes to make a spike protein. And then you have spike protein, in some cases, trafficked or brought to the membrane of the cell itself. You put in little flags on the surface of the cell, waving around saying, hey, I have something bad in me, come and kill me, at least come check me out. Those cells become tagged for destruction.
When spike protein is lingering, either after having had COVID or after having had a vaccine or a series of shots, that spike protein can induce autoimmune phenomena as well as many of the other mechanisms.
The spike protein is a glycoprotein. That's the most common protein in our bodies.
We know spike protein looks eerily like the body and brain, such that our immune system now is getting mixed up.
So if you have proteins in your body close enough in resemblance to the spike protein, you can have the antibodies attack that.
So when spike protein is lingering, the immune system is creating antibodies now against myelin, against the protective coating around the nerves, as well as in the brain.
So unfortunately, they chose a protein that causes our own bodies to attack our own tissue. That's a problem. That's called molecular mimicry. Transverse myelitis is a disease or injury to your central nervous system. Perhaps my condition is from my own immune system responding to that mRNA vaccine and thinking my spinal cord was either COVID-19 virus or COVID-19 virus infected cells and attacking it, demyelinating it, and killing some of the neurons.
There's no other way for the body to see that protein as anything other than foreign. Wherever it's found, attack.
All the COVID vaccines that are available in the US cause the body to make the spike protein. And we did see the same injury happening for Johnson & Johnson, for Moderna, for Pfizer.
We began seeing a deluge of new multiple sclerosis patients, other demyelinating disorders. Usually in these patients, it is not one symptom. They have a multi-system complex disease.
The neurological system, the lymphatic system, the hepatological system, respiratory system, every system we have is being affected. There's immune dysfunction. It's basically immunological haywire. MIS, multi-system inflammatory syndrome. Basically, it's the pro-inflammatory branch or part of the immune system out of control systemically. So you get symptoms occurring, I'll call them symptoms, in many different parts of the body all at once.
I need this out, I can't do it.
When I asked my neurologist, do you think my transverse myelitis is related to the COVID shot? Quote, Joel, I don't want to get involved, end quote.
When I brought up the fact, well, what do you think about the vaccine? Because that's the only variable.
I said, no, it's not the COVID vaccination. The vaccination is safe.
I literally laughed and said, girl, this is all in your head.
I was brought in, given a room immediately, and told that I had had a heart attack and that I may have to have surgery. Hour and a half later, a nurse came into the room and said that there had been a horrible mistake and that I had had an anxiety attack. I was muffled, I was told I was wrong, I was told to go home, and I was told not to talk.
Went to my family doctor that afternoon. He immediately prescribed me with vertigo and a severe panic attack.
So they said, you know what, this is all in your head. So we're gonna get you all these antidepressants and get you out of this pain that you're making up in your head. And not only did that exacerbate my pain, but that made me go into the darkest hole of my life.
There's an episode of The Golden Girls that addresses this. Dorothy all of a sudden finds herself extremely fatigued. She knows that there's something wrong with her. She knows that there's something different.
I have heart palpitations. I can't concentrate. I forget things.
Look, Dorothy, I don't believe you're sick. Now, you want to pursue this? You want to spend more money? That's fine with me.
So Dorothy goes to visit a number of doctors in the show.
I want you to see Michael Chang. He's a virologist on staff here at the hospital.
And it was the same kind of thing that we're seeing now. She was told that she had a mental disorder.
Don't take this the wrong way, but have you ever thought about seeing a psychiatrist?
I have seen two.
I think of that episode a lot because I see it all the time here.
We have literally been told by doctors, if this were real, we would have been told by the FDA that this can happen. They aren't saying that, so this must not be real.
There's people that have gotten diagnoses in their chart of anxiety disorder, functional neurological disorder, which is basically a medical term to say they're nuts, when really they have biologic, pathophysiological conditions that are just ignored.
The number one diagnosis with these presenting vaccine-injured patients is something called functional neurological disorder, which I will tell you in this day and age is a dangerous diagnosis. Once that diagnosis is labeled in the chart, it's very difficult to get that erased. It's the first thing that these patients are identified as when they go back to the emergency room.
CT scan came back normal. There was no growths or anything like that. And I went to see the neurologist. He had written in his record of my appointment with him that he had spoken with me at length about functional neurologic disorder, which had never occurred during that appointment. So they set me up with a referral to a well-renowned movement specialist in the city. And without even testing to see if I was experiencing high levels of stress or anxiety, she just said that functional neurologic disorder is typically caused by stress and anxiety. That's what's going on with you. Even my primary care provider, she diagnosed me with psychological conversion disorder.
So once you are labeled with a diagnosis like that, it follows you from doctor to doctor to doctor to doctor to doctor, and there's no getting away from it.
I made a decision very early on that I wasn't going to turn into a bitter person because of this. You know, because that'll just make it worse for everybody. And this is already a pretty terrible situation as is.
This is not okay. You only had 2,000 kids in this trial. 1,000 of them got the vaccine. 1 in 1,000 is a lot.
But talking to the doctors that I've talked to, I did write each one of them, and they're not telling me that they think it's research related.
They kept pushing. It's just functional. It's just functional.
When she had that officially put into her chart, it was the day before they submitted for the emergency authorization. The day before.
Today, Pfizer announced its vaccine is safe and effective and generates a robust immune response
against symptomatic disease in kids ages 12 to 15.
I'm Ernest Ramirez. I'm the father of Ernesto Ramirez Jr. I raised Junior since he was a baby. I always felt that he was going to do wonderful things in this world because I was going to try my best to teach him. I didn't want to see my son sick. And in April, I took him to get the vaccine. 5 days later, my neighbor asked me if she could take Junior and her son to go eat and go play basketball. I gave him some money. I gave him a hug and a kiss. Told him to be good. They called me if he needed anything. That was the last time I spoke to him. My neighbor called me later on, screaming that something was wrong with Junior. So I raced to the park. They were loading him up on the ambulance. And when I got to the hospital, they just acted like nothing. They just said, "Oh, your son's dead." Like it meant nothing.
Now, what parents really care about is what's the worst thing can happen. We do know that for males under the age of about 30, there is an increased incidence, it appears, with the vaccines of a rare side effect of an inflammation, mild inflammation of the heart called myocarditis. And it's very mild. They go to the hospital, they're looked at, observed, given a little bit of ibuprofen, a pain reliever, and they go home, and they seem to be doing just fine in follow-up as in the studies that we've been looking at.
A lot of the people with myocarditis, if they do tissue staining of people that have inflammation of their heart, again, myocarditis just means inflammation. What they'll see is it's full on staining, it's full of spike protein.
And they've done pathology on teenagers who've died after receiving the vaccine, who've died from myocarditis. And what they find pathologically is that the heart inflammation does not resemble the standard heart inflammation that you'd expect from normal myocarditis. This is inflammatory, cytokine-driven myocarditis, similar to what you'd see in multisystem inflammatory syndrome.
Pathology is, data gathering, like patterns. What's out of position in this pattern? What's out of proportion in this pattern? I have the autopsy tissues of a young man right here on my desk. 14. He didn't need that shot.
Look. This is my stomach con.
Oh, lovely. Thank you.
The second MRI was of her brain. And when she woke up, she could not control her neck.
I'm here with you, okay? Maddie, breathe.
Yeah, I don't even, you try to block it out because you don't want to remember that. From the beginning, they've ignored everything that happened to her. They acted like it didn't matter, like it was nothing.
Maddie, you can breathe, Maddie.
You think that if something happens, they're going to do everything they can to make sure that they figure it out. They did not do that at all.
I didn't want to live like this anymore. How do I make this stop? This needs to stop. And I remember asking my husband, I was like, I need this to stop. Just help me make it stop. And my son, my beautiful boy, heard me say to my husband, just let me die. I just need to die. And that terrified him.
And as I lay in bed there thinking, oh my God, can I live like this? Can my husband live like this? Like, what if I'm in a wheelchair forever? Like, a normal person like myself was thinking of ways to kill herself. That is not normal. And I'm not saying this for you to feel sorry for me. I'm saying this for people to understand to the depths of which this is beyond frightening. When nobody has answers, nobody has a lifeline, doctors have no idea, nobody knows how to help you, and when you do go for help, they tell you that you have anxiety and you're crazy and it's in your head.
It was really hard to explain to my 8-year-old who saw me convulsing and not able to control my body. My husband had to sit on me to hold me still. He was terrified, and I had to try to tell him I was gonna be okay, knowing that I had no idea if I was gonna be okay.
Like, is this gonna be my life forever? How much longer can I feel this sickness? Am I gonna die tomorrow? So you're trying to make memories with your kids, but you can't even make the memories with your kids because you're so sick. What's the future, 2 years from now, 5 years from now? If I even make it to 5 years.
I felt that if this illness didn't go away quickly, I was thinking about ending my life. The symptoms were unbearable, and I've never been suicidal in my life.
And in my mind, I'm thinking, for the world, if I die, everybody would be better off. My wife wouldn't have to drive up there every day. She wouldn't have to worry about things.
She wrote a letter to our son, trying to explain the love that she had for him, how she was proud of him. But when I read it, it was obvious that she was trying to leave him a message for when she wasn't here. I mean, to have your wife, the mother of your children, who was perfectly fine before, now get to this place where they're writing goodbye, have a good life, be the best you can be to their child, brought me to my knees in tears. That's the only reason she didn't write one to her daughter, because she saw that.
I'll never forgive myself for what this has done to my kids, what I have done to my kids. A little boy should never have to worry about that.
This is real. I have located several people that pretty much have some of the similar issues that I have. And the only thing that they've done different was receive the vaccination.
We're supposed to work with my neurologist here with the NIH, and the NIH was recommending steroids, IVIG, plasmapheresis, those types of remedies. And my home team here wanted nothing to do with it.
When we went to the NIH, it was, we're going to figure out what this is, we're going to find out what helps, and we're going to tell everyone about it. That's what they were promising.
They told us that they were going to publish the data they were gathering on us. It felt amazing to be selected to go. They selected medical professionals, and for some reason, me.
NIH diagnosed her with non-length dependent neuropathy,
severe postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, post-vaccine neuropathy, tinnitus, and short-term memory loss.
And the IVIG has really helped to knock that down.
Here is my packet of IVIG. So this is a bunch of immune cells in here. It's not a silver bullet, it's not the cure, but it definitely is giving me my life back.
So in March of 2021, I crossed paths with Dr. Denise Hertz. And she is a fierce force for good. And she was injured by her COVID vaccine. And she had found 3 or 4 people at that point that were like us. Hey, Denise, it's good to see you.
Hi, Bree. Good to see you too. After my comment that I wrote in Neurology Today, and I started getting emails from people all over the world, several women in the United States contacted me, and Bree, I believe, was the second person to contact me.
I'm expanding my diet a little bit, and I doubled my low-dose naltrexone dose, which was awesome.
That is a magical drug. I've been on it now for over a month, and it's really helping me a lot. I wish I had started it a long time ago.
And so she said, hey, let's exchange emails. So she put us all on this little email string together, and we were all relieved to be there together.
Our lives never would have collided in any way if we hadn't become ill. We live in different states and all different walks of life.
So it was really amazing to be able to finally connect with even just a few people that knew exactly what I was experiencing.
I finally connected with them. Bree was one of the ones that I connected with.
It was April or May, and she was terrified. She was scared. Her daughter was in the hospital, and my way of helping her was to listen to her. And I stayed on the phone with her countless nights while we both cried about what was happening to Maddie. We commiserated, we laughed. We have a lot of really dumb inside jokes now.
Actually, I found a family. There's a core group of us. It's not a day that we don't talk. It's not a day that we don't type to each other.
As time went on, the group continued to grow, and it got bigger and bigger. So Denise and Christy Dobbs set us up in a Facebook group.
People started telling me, hey, there's a group out there of other people like you. And I joined it.
She said, okay, we have a group with a whole bunch of vaccine injured people.
And the Facebook group got really big really quick. And before we knew it, we needed another Facebook group and another. And then there were thousands of us.
At first, when I joined these groups and I started reading through everything, it was a bit overwhelming to see how many there were on there and how many symptoms there were after the vaccine.
These groups are pretty much the only help that people are getting.
Denise Hertz is on an email string with the heads of the NIH, the heads of the FDA, and the CDC, and they're all telling her, hold off, don't say anything, just give us a couple of weeks and we'll figure this out.
If you look at VAERS database, there are more than 1,000 neurological side effects already reported.
And that was March of 2021. They flew COVID vaccine injured into the NIH to be researched because of our injuries. They told us that they were going to figure this out. So we told everybody, hey, just hang on, help is coming, the NIH is going to publish. And then that would open up the door for everybody to get care.
We've been at battle against the pandemic, and there's been damage. Seems reasonable to say, let's help these people.
So the NFL player gets on the phone with a senator, and it's like, hey, check out these videos.
I'm Ron Johnson. I'm the U.S. Senator from Wisconsin. Originally, when I heard that Ken called me, I just called him up. He's a Green Bay Packer Hall of Famer. You know, I know who Ken Ruckers is, so this is kind of cool.
My name is Cheryl Rutgers. I live in Oregon. I'm a wife, I'm a mother, and a grandmother.
His wife, Cheryl, had suffered a vaccine injury, and he just wanted to know, is there something I could do to help?
I want our neurological injuries to be recognized and acknowledged by the CDC and the FDA.
This is a group of people that have a very simple request. They just want to be seen. They want their stories heard. They would like to be believed.
I told Dr. Nath at the NIH that I was going to do that press conference, and he commended me for my advocacy. And he told me that there were two things that the world needed to know, and one is that this was treatable and that early intervention was key.
I just wanted to say thank you all for being here to hear these stories. As you can see, we are like family. We have suffered together for so long in a way that no one understands but us.
Unfortunately, all I could do was create a platform and hopefully trigger some compassion.
We are asking to be seen, we are asking to be heard, and we're asking to be believed. Thank you.
Thank you for calling. Wait, I gotta hide so I can like the following option.
Where are you hiding?
For corporate or group sales. Wait, no, I don't. For you, press 1.
After the press conference, we went back to the hotel, and because of my own problems, I had to go lay down. So it's like, I'm gonna go back to my room and lay down. And Maddie actually climbed up into the bed with me, and we just laid there and hung out like we were old friends.
Good, I got it.
No! Yes! 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 No! Yes! That experience was worth it just to give Maddie a sense of belonging, because that was the first time that she had interacted with anyone who had had an adverse event to the COVID vaccine.
I don't even know how to explain it. It's like she made Maddie feel like normal.
We talked about boys and all the normal things that, you know, teenagers should talk about. And so she finally felt like she wasn't alone.
Hello, thank you for calling. Monica, I can help you.
Hello,
She makes me want to keep fighting and to fight harder.
Fox hosts aren't the only prominent people giving anti-vax conspiracies a platform. They're getting help from one United States senator in particular, and that is Ron Johnson.
I think the American public should be able to have informed consent when deciding whether or not to take an experimental vaccine one way or the other.
Stay in your own lane. That's the message to Senator Ron Johnson after Johnson hosted a press event Monday with people who say they experienced negative side effects from the COVID-19 vaccine.
We thought that the public would finally hear our stories and the questions would begin to be asked, the agencies would be held accountable, and we could all go back home and focus on healing.
I was hoping that those news reporters would hear the stories and have an ounce of compassion, but that's not how they treated the story.
Johnson pushes the conspiracy theory like, what? I'm just asking the question.
Senator Johnson, misinformation. Senator Johnson's misinformation panel. And guess who was still invisible?
The U.S. Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, is appealing to the nation to fight misinformation about COVID-19 and vaccines.
When it comes to misinformation, not sharing is caring, unlike what many of our moms taught us.
So within 24 hours of that first press conference that we had in Milwaukee, Facebook shut down the first of our vaccine-injured support groups.
As social media platforms step up their effort to crack down on misinformation about COVID vaccines,
misinformation litter on Facebook and Twitter.
It was very obvious that an all-out assault had begun on us on mainstream media.
Vaccine misinformation on lies about vaccines.
Disinformation is one of the biggest challenges in getting people vaccinated.
Social media as well.
Well, the company is taking down anti-vaccine videos and banning major accounts.
And within the next 5 days, they found another one, and they shut that one down.
The company reports it's now banning all anti-vax videos.
So we're regularly making sure social media platforms are aware of the latest narratives dangerous to public health.
With social media platforms, the censorship started immediately.
It was merely me telling my story, and they were saying it was misinformation.
Even if it's me saying my daughter's own personal experience, then it is fact-checked and it's false.
This is a responsibility of officials speaking, of course, on behalf of the government. It's a responsibility of members of the media.
Mainstream media is not disclosing these injuries, and that's intentional.
While Facebook says it's working hard to fight misinformation, removing 18 million COVID-19 falsehoods so far.
And to be told that your life story is false information, how would that make you feel?
We're dealing with a life or death issue here, and so everybody has a role to play in making sure there's accurate information.
So if you're ever wondering why you're not seeing vaccine injuries in the news, well, it's a multi-layered issue.
It's important to take faster action against harmful posts. As you all know, information travels quite quickly on social media platforms.
They get threatened by health officials, university institutions, medical institutions.
We engage with them regularly, and they certainly understand what our asks are.
These support groups are a lifeline for people. This is all that they have.
I don't know where to go. Look at this. Her cause of death, her actual cause of death is not on this.
Right, which it wouldn't be. That's the problem. If there's anything, like any kind of prior health history, they will put that on the death certificate every single time. I get on the phone with as many people as I can, but it's it's almost 10:30 here. So kids put themselves to bed, and there's just not enough time in the day.
Well, you go be with your husband and do treat him well and have a good time and you relax because I know you have done so much. Tell your husband I said Happy Father's Day.
I will. Thank you for that. Okay. Bye. How undignified is that? Her daughter's dead. She's hoping that she gets a phone call from a preschool teacher. They have nobody, right? The government's turned their back on them. And there's nobody that has any answers, nobody that wants to bother to help her find the answers that she needs.
Good afternoon, wherever you're located. Thanks. If everyone on wants to just introduce themselves, it might be helpful, and then we can introduce who's on from the FDA.
After we got these meetings set up with the FDA, thankfully through my home senator here, Senator Lee.
So I'm Peter Marks, Director of Center for Biologics.
Peter Marks, head of biologics, is the guy that is supposed to evaluate the safety and the efficacy of these vaccines. As you can tell, we've got thousands of people that are having issues with the neurological side effects to the COVID vaccines. We're currently involved with research at the NIH, but the research at the NIH has been kind of mired and slowed. I confirmed with Janet Woodcock, the head of the FDA, as well as with the researchers that we were working with at the NIH, that I knew that they were talking to each other. And after that, NIH went radio silent. I wanted to make sure that they got a perspective from medical professionals. One of these physicians is a critical care physician. She's trying to hang on to her medical license. I'm going to protect her identity.
Thank you, Bree, for inviting me. And Dr. Marks, it's really wonderful to meet you. As you know, the physician community holds FDA guidance in incredibly high esteem. After the FDA communications about myocarditis came out, both the ER and cardiology teams were tuned to look for it. Our patient care dramatically improved, all due to the FDA advisory.
They disclosed myocarditis to the medical community, and the medical community was given the green light to actually identify myocarditis and look for it and help their patients, and also report myocarditis.
So the FDA is not naming additional adverse reactions to the vaccine because the passive surveillance systems aren't displaying it. But the passive surveillance systems aren't displaying it because physicians are blinded to the adverse reactions in their patients and thus aren't reporting them. And it's resulted in a negative feedback loop. And I believe that this loop is the reason why we are having a hard time getting recognition from the FDA regarding our neurologic reactions. So we are really hoping to have a conversation with you that has more specific details with how the FDA has looked into things such as small fiber neuropathy, dysautonomia, and general neuropathy.
It's not like we can just cluster neurologic symptoms in general. So is the majority of folks with this, is it dysautonomia? What would you say are kind of the top three? It doesn't have to be just one, but what are the top couple of things that you think we should be looking for?
It is obvious from that question they have not looked specifically for any of these things.
There's 88 distinct search terms on VAERS when you curate to indicate a neuropathy. So I'm hoping we can look at all of them.
Yes, please feel free to send that to us. Yep, that would be helpful.
Ask a preschool teacher and a critical care physician for 88 terms of neuropathy. We'll hand it over. We'll get that to you.
You know, in the meantime, I hope that things get better for you both, and we'll continue to look into things. Thanks.
Now, concerns are growing in Israel after some fully vaccinated adults got infected with the coronavirus. The country had one of the fastest vaccination programs in the world, but now cases there are rising again, fueled by the Delta variant.
Breakthrough case numbers are on the rise due to the Delta variant.
469 cases in Massachusetts, 74% were fully vaccinated.
Delta came to the United States and started evading the vaccines.
The first question is, why isn't the United States looking in our own backyard for our data? But they were. They just weren't telling us what it said.
COVID continues to surge across many parts of America, a major reversal from its drop early on when the scientific breakthrough of vaccines slashed the caseload, as you can see there. Now, July and August show those days of vanishing COVID cases were temporary.
I've been working with healthcare claims data for over 25 years. And the data that I do have access to, which I'm really grateful for, is the Center for Medicare and Medicaid database. This database is so huge that it covers nearly 40% of the United States population, and I started to feel like I was the only one looking at it, because I think I was. 80% of the vaccinated over 65 population, an estimated 71% of COVID cases occurred in fully vaccinated individuals.
You're not going to get COVID if you have these vaccinations.
The breakthrough rate was 62%. What this says to me is the vaccine wasn't working, and they lied about it.
Recent data indicates there is only one confirmed positive case per 5,000 fully vaccinated Americans per day.
Instead of Rochelle Walensky, Janet Woodcock at the FDA, and the President of the United States being open and honest about the limitations of the COVID vaccines, they redirected all of that anger and frustration on the small, unvaccinated minority. So then came the
pandemic of the unvaccinated.
Pandemic of the unvaccinated.
This is becoming a pandemic of the unvaccinated.
Pandemic of the unvaccinated. Now, that's what the CDC says we're dealing with as the U.S. sees a new rise in COVID-19 cases.
What we really need to do at this point is to make vaccination the easy choice. It needs to be hard for people to remain unvaccinated.
Now we need to go to community by community, neighborhood by neighborhood, and oftentimes door to door, literally knocking on doors, to get help to the remaining people protected from the virus.
If my commanders saw this in a movie, they'd be like, oh my gosh, the binder. We've all seen the binder. Like, this is one of 3 binders. My name is Lieutenant Colonel Teresa Long. I'm a Army flight surgeon, and I have a master's in public health. I'm an aerospace and occupational medicine specialist.
A new study on the COVID-19 vaccines found more cases of heart inflammation than expected among members of our U.S. military.
Right out the bat, when they came out and they just had this stance that it was safe and effective for absolutely everybody, it was just blatantly absurd.
Medical experts say side effects from vaccines nearly always occur within a couple weeks of a person being vaccinated.
Most adverse events occur within about a month and a half of vaccination. So I think we were hoping that if we see major ones, we'll see it then.
People got their first vaccination, and then they had to wait 2 weeks, and then they got their second vaccination. And according to regulators, they weren't vaccinated until 2 weeks after that.
For the first 2 weeks after you had been injected, you're classified as unvaccinated. And that's true after the second dose in the case of a 2-dose vaccine.
30 days past vaccination administered within the past 30 days. That's what that says.
It's a statistical sleight of hand, delaying the time at which they assign the word vaccinated to an individual.
All of those people who died within that time frame will be reported as having been unvaccinated.
If you then compare on a chart people who died who are unvaccinated and vaccinated, we would be shown a wrong cohort of people that died after vaccination.
So if you replotted that data by defining these people properly as injected or uninjected, it's a very important distinction when you're talking about immunological effects, side effects, reactions. We're actually seeing vaccine injuries, but according to their own established timelines, these people were unvaccinated.
These people developed these very serious, life-threatening adverse events within 30 days of their first COVID vaccine dose.
So every time you go in to see your medical provider in a clinic, you have to assign a diagnosis code to why you were there.
This person had a pretty normal health life up until the time of the vaccine. 6 days after the vaccine date, they have a cardiac arrest and they die. But what's also important to note here is the secondary diagnosis. They have coded a T code, which is poisoning by unspecified drugs, biological substances, accidental. What does this mean?
What if they died because they had an anaphylactic adverse event to the COVID shot? I highly doubt their primary diagnosis is going to be adverse event to COVID vaccine. First of all, the code doesn't exist.
They're not willing to create a 6-digit code to track us. Why? I don't understand it. Because without that code, we don't exist.
That's how these numbers can be manipulated. They can be manipulated so we can't search them, but they also can be manipulated to really hide them.
The distribution of the data is not being portrayed properly because the definition is wrong. It's flawed. It's intentional.
The pandemic of the unvaccinated was, in fact, a pandemic of vaccine injuries.
That is the pandemic of the unvaccinated.
These are facts you can use if you're talking to people. As for the FDA approval part, Dr. Fauci says that's also now likely a few weeks away.
I kept having more and more unusual things coming up in our population. More and more people kept coming and talking to me about their horrible side effects from the vaccine. Stop, and I think I should go look in that database, the DMED. So I get on the computer and have access to it, and I start plugging in ICD codes. And the numbers are just unreal. So I call Lieutenant Colonel Pete Chambers.
My name is Pete Constantine Chambers, retired Lieutenant Colonel, United States Army Special Operations. I was also a flight surgeon with the United States Army Green Berets. When I lost the ability to go to my command, I went to a congressman. I went to 2 congressmen. I went to 3. Nobody wanted to talk about it until finally Senator Johnson came forward and said, I'm looking for whistleblowers. And I had been talking to Dr. Teresa Long, a lieutenant colonel, flight surgeon out of Fort Rucker, Alabama, and she said, look at the DMED data, Defense Medical Epidemiology Database. Look at that data. I pulled up the DMED data and went, whoa, neurologic events up 1,100% since the shots rolled out. 11x rise.
The DoD data at this point, as well as the Medicare database, they both talk about how neurological disorders are happening at a much higher rate than myocarditis, and they still can't find it.
We have not found a rate of transverse myelitis, for instance, that is higher than would be expected in the population.
So this is transverse myelitis. So essentially 2021 had as many cases as the preceding 4 or 5 years before it.
That's the main part of defining a safety signal. Is it out of the ordinary?
I don't have the data to be able to make a connection yet.
The average number of adverse event reports to VAERS over the past 30 years for all vaccines combined is 39,000, more or less. Compare that to over 700,000 reports. You don't have to consider it to see a deplorable safety profile.
There's a database that exists in the government realm called the Social Security Administration Death Master File. And this file has roughly 90 million records in it. And it captures 85 to 90% of deaths in the United States. So what I did was compare each month for the prior 5 years.
For these mRNA vaccines, there is incredible BS out there about like thousands of people dying, etc. That just ain't true.
We are seeing right now the highest death rates we have ever seen in the history of this business. It's not just at One America. The data is consistent across every player in that business.
When comparing the DMED data to VAERS and to other data banks around the world, to include actuaries from insurance companies, when you compare those, they virtually line up the same.
I don't want to think that these things are so dangerous that they're causing this much excess and injuries in my fellow people. But it really, really looks like that's the truth.
They continue to query the various databases, the large databases for neurologic adverse events, still have not seen a signal.
You explain to me. Everybody explain to me. Regulators explain to me. Why is this not being investigated as a safety signal? Wow, yeah, we need a lot of answers from a lot of people.
And then she started work, because she's 16, that was her first job, and then her legs just like buckled on her, and then these falling incidents started.
Okay, yeah, so that's POTS then. Every single day. Why It is the responsibility of sick people to do this. It's beyond me. We've got desperate, scared people. Yeah, this kid deserves better. Maddie deserves better.
Well, good morning and welcome. I first want to thank all the participants. Many of these individuals have a very difficult time traveling. As Bree and Maddie and Stephanie are well aware of, telling the truth in today's cancel culture is not necessarily easy.
We came up with this idea for a panel with lots of experts and lots of injured. That's when we decided to call Senator Ron Johnson.
It's a real shame that we're having to hold this roundtable. Had government officials, the heads of our healthcare agencies, had they been doing their job, had they been honest and transparent with the American public, we wouldn't be here today. We have turned all the data into information. We need to keep building on it and building it and building it until it's irrefutable and it can't be ignored. Vaccine injuries are rare and mild until one happens to you or your loved one.
First, take note that the principal investigator for Maddie's trial is the lead author for the New England Journal of Medicine article.
We have now gotten the internal report that Pfizer submitted to the FDA explaining what happened to Maddie. The principal investigator paid by Pfizer says that he does not, quote, feel the vaccine is related to Maddie's injuries despite all of the medical records, initial emergency reports reflecting that it was the vaccine.
Sorry that things are... Sorry not fixing it, but you know this is related to the vaccine. That's what kills me. How do you say that it's not related?
And we have the email that Peter Marks, Mr. Just a Minute, who's deciding on licensing COVID-19 vaccine, says, principal investigator says I don't feel it's related. Done. That was it. That is your regulatory authority in action.
In the EUA amendment, Maddie's adverse reaction was reduced to 5 lines that they claim was eventually diagnosed as functional abdominal pain. It's a stomach ache.
Because my reaction was so severe, AstraZeneca told me I was not allowed to get the second dose.
In the trial report, it says that no serious safety concerns were identified. They also go on to say that 180 people withdrew. 266 people experienced an adverse event leading to trial discontinuation. 56 of those were considered neurological.
For us to make some kind of a statement publicly, we have to find the data in our database that says that in a group of vaccinated individuals versus a group of unvaccinated individuals, that we have some type of signal.
Where's the unvaccinated background that they're using? Where are those people? Because he says they need them.
How many studies do you run where you take the placebo group and give them vaccine too?
After the end of May, we have lost the placebo group, so we cannot really say anything about the duration of vaccine efficacy after that. There's no more efficacy data, basically, after that.
So they're not the control group anymore. Isn't that the purpose of a study? To have a control? Really?
No, to have a control.
But there is no control now.
Well,
you vaccinated everybody.
No, but
you're trying to do that to try to provide protection.
Yeah, no, you think it's providing protection.
You've erased your control group. You have no comparison. So it looks like anything that happens is just common and normal because you have no reference to compare it to.
Well, I think the term deliberately deficient by design is appropriate.
I, along with several injured physicians, continued to reach out to the FDA through emails, phone calls. We did video conferences with Peter Marks and Janet Woodcock, constant emails with Janet Woodcock and myself directly. They made all kinds of commitments to us.
The statements over and over and over, starting last May, of promises to look at this, assurances to look at this, action items from prior meetings, none of which has come to pass.
To follow up, to circle back, to investigate.
What we'll do is we will circle back, we can circle back, and we'll circle back with our colleagues.
While the FDA was telling you to go get your shot, We were meeting with them behind closed doors about the COVID vaccine injured.
Can you do me a favor? Could you explain to me a little bit more why they can't get medical care? I'm really trying to understand that.
Until someone says, hey, it's okay to say there might be something wrong with this patient because of their vaccine, we're not going to get anywhere. Because it's not recognized on any level. We have several kids that are being labeled with FND. My own doctor's still at home. They're afraid to say COVID vaccine injury. It's almost like it's a dirty word. It's really weird. We have literally asked and we have begged repeatedly for them to acknowledge these reactions.
They're trying to do the best and not give you misinformation because we rush stuff.
In the meantime, our lives are misinformation. They know that their lack of acknowledgement has created insurmountable barrier to our ability to receive medical care from doctors who rely on these agencies for information. We did everything we could in these meetings to get a couple of simple lines added to the label on the COVID vaccine package insert. That's it. They know about the issues with the clinical trials. They know about the deaths. They know about the lack of follow-up on VAERS. They know about the injuries to children. They know about the mandates imposed on the injured.
Until they actually see something, or until they have kind of definitive evidence that something is related, it will not go on the label.
If you have this reaction, that reaction, that reaction, Maddie's reaction, Doug's reaction, the government won't help you. The drug companies won't help you. Your medical teams will have no idea what to do with you. You are on your own. We invited our senators, heads of the NIH, the heads of HHS, the head of the FDA, the head of CDC. They were all invited. None of them showed up. They didn't even send a representative. But because of that event, more and more people realized that they were not alone.
I'm getting to that point of pain again where it's like, that's where I drank the last time.
It is really hard to watch this. It's that connection of that PTSD that's just developed through the years of this. I luckily stumbled across the U.S. Senate hearing where Bree was speaking, and that's when I found Bree. And I was just in awe of her. And a lot of her symptoms were very similar to mine and the hell that she was going through, and she's very similar age to me, so I really resonated with her.
There's so many people that this is suffering too. And no one believes them.
This was when I was really all alone and everyone was telling me I was crazy, and I was kind of begging the universe for it to be MS. I would just be like, it's making something that's popular and I'm not like outcast. Yeah, no, it's not the most taboo thing to happen to me. Good thing is I've come a long way since then, so that's actually a good feeling. I actually know what's going on in my body as opposed to thinking it's all in my head and I'm a crazy person.
I don't understand. I'm so frustrated. I'm so angry.
We kind of all molded like a family and really said to each other, we got to take this to the next stage and try to help people.
We were invited to attend and present at an event in Washington, D.C.
Whatever political party you identify with, you are welcome here. If you are vaccinated or unvaccinated, you are welcome here.
Thank all of you for coming out today to stand up for our children and for the United States Constitution.
Thousands of anti-vaxxers marched against mandates on the National Mall
to protest vaccine and mask mandates.
The Defeat the Mandates rally was largely organized on Facebook and some internet forums.
And extremist websites that spread COVID misinformation.
Thousands of far right-wing nuts joined thousands of far left-wing nuts for what was billed as a Defeat the Mandates rally. And you think at this point, the fact that the chances of dying from COVID are 60 times higher.
All of the vaccine injured that came to that event, we all had been carrying this burden of hate. As much as all of us thought we had been letting it roll off our backs, we didn't realize just how much of that we had been hanging on to. That's when we launched React 19.
The team of injured people at React 19 saw my story and reached out. I broke down in tears as I realized I wasn't alone in the search for answers. That was when I met this beautiful group of people behind me. Look them in their eyes. Acknowledge their suffering. Admit this is real, not just rare.
It was the first time since this whole thing started for me that I was met face to face with people that believed me. All of that hate that we had been absorbing for months, it melted away. And in that place, it was just replaced with love and respect. For once, someone actually could see us for who we really were.
Please consider giving generously to React 19. 100% of the funds raised will go directly to the COVID vaccine injured for their medical expenses.
A big, we did it. We launched the compensation fund. Now, going into these events, we can say, look, this program is running. Not that it will run, but that it's running.
We have no corporate donors. It's all independent, everyday people that are contributing to get these people better. We're doing the government's job with no money and a lot of power against us.
There's a young girl that was misdiagnosed as functional neurological disorder. Basically, she was told she was crazy. She was actually admitted to an inpatient psychiatric ward for 3 weeks. We got involved and ended up getting her a grant for $10,000.
She gets IVIG, brain fog goes down, psychosis starts to wane, she gets up and walking. She's no longer in diapers, she's no longer in a wheelchair.
Reading the stories of the injured, and when we read these applications, is heartbreaking. Reading the stories of, sorry. Reading the stories of the injured kids. It's the worst. But, I mean, it drives me to continue to move forward and to help whoever we can.
Hi, this is Brianne Dressen.
Hey, thanks for returning my call. It's just horrible. I don't know what to do. Everything is gonna be another nightmare of 5 years.
I'm sorry. Let's get you some of your life back, okay? Does that sound like a plan? Yeah.
I didn't want to do this, I didn't. But it's the task at hand, and I'm really stubborn, so I'm gonna keep going.
Pfizer is forecasting $15 billion in revenue. The company's total sales reached almost $26 billion.
The company is expecting to set another record this year.
So how does an EUA come about? Now, an emergency authorization gives you a certain standard to bring something quickly to the market for an emergency. Who's trying to get this authorization? Pfizer, Moderna. How much are they paying to the FDA to get this authorization? Almost half of its funding comes from pharma. So pharma pays to get a drug approved.
Yeah, FDA is all about food and drug safety, and they've just looked the other way. They've ignored their own safety surveillance systems. Instead, what they're doing is they're covering for the vaccine industry, for big pharma. They won't allow the public to even ask the questions.
If you look at the FDA, it's a revolving door with the boards of pharma. So somebody sits at the head of the FDA, and now they're sitting on the board of Pfizer. So you have this intertwining corporate interest at the FDA.
Joining us right now is Dr. Scott Gottlieb. He's former FDA commissioner, and he also serves on the boards of both Pfizer and Illumina.
Medical boards started coming after physicians' licenses if you so much as question
what they're saying.
How many of you personally have witnessed censorship, intimidation, or professional reprisal and damage as a result of your advocacy for patients?
This kind of threat hanging over your head is worse than the threat of getting fired. If I get fired from a particular healthcare organization, I can go to another healthcare organization or go start a private practice. If I lose my medical license, I cannot practice medicine.
Why are they destroying these doctors? Well, they want to make an example of them so that nobody else steps out of line or starts asking questions or reports adverse events in the VAERS system.
Methodist Hospital threatened their doctors. You cannot sign medical exemptions. You cannot talk about, you cannot report adverse reactions to these vaccines.
If they put down that it was a vaccine injury, the physician, the corporation, the hospital, the clinic, they actually won't get reimbursed, so it gets labeled as anxiety.
Transparency was likewise abandoned. Along with several colleagues, I had to file a FOIA request to obtain the Pfizer vaccine clinical trial data from the FDA.
Instead of trying to figure out how to release this information, they appealed to the courts requesting 55 years. All this time, they're meeting with us. Obviously, you guys know that you have a huge stack of documents that have been mandated or required that you guys have to release them, and you guys are going through and you requested 50 years. So if you can imagine for the vaccine injured, that was like a big kick in the pants.
That's not going to help here. I can just say that with absolute certainty, because that's not what's that has manufacturing information. It has clinical trial information that will have to be redacted.
The agency came back saying that it wanted 75 years to release this data.
FDA supported Pfizer in their desire to withhold that trial information for 75 years or 100, a very long period of time, okay? Basically keep it hidden until we're all dead and gone.
I don't think that you'd actually find the answer to the problems that are going on.
They found their syndromes in there that they were told for months don't exist.
There were nearly 26,000 reports of nervous system disorder.
And you know what, it'll come out in the wash and you'll see, I don't think there's anything being hidden here. None of us are denying that there are potential vaccine injury here. No one here is denying what's going on here. None of us are denying that there are these reports of neuropathy. I'm not denying that doesn't, just so we step back. No one's denying it. Just so you understand.
Right, so you guys know we exist. We know that you know that we exist, but the public doesn't think that you guys know that we exist. If this was a marriage, Peter Marks would have been divorced a long time ago. There is not a single promise that he is held up to.
I got contacted by attorney Tom Renz over the weekend. He showed me the data that is being extracted from, what is the name of this database?
DMED. It's the Defense Medical Database.
They have noticed a very alarming increase in instances of certain conditions compared to a 5-year average.
Senator Johnson, to the camera, he says,
the Department of Defense, the Biden administration is on notice. They must preserve these records, and this must be investigated.
Less than 24 hours, the system went down. We couldn't get on. We couldn't find anything. We couldn't do anything. About 48 hours later, it came back up.
The database was frozen by the DoD. And then the next week, all of a sudden, all the previous 5 years' number came up.
What they did was they took this data that went up 1,100%, and they just brought all this data up like this, or to match. So it looked like there was no real change.
So are we really to believe that the United States military, a younger, healthy population than the general U.S. population, had an incidence of pulmonary embolisms almost 3.2 times the national average? And we just didn't know that we had a problem with pulmonary embolisms in the military?
They thought they pulled one over on us. They didn't. They didn't, because then we went back and looked at data from 2001 to 2015 and showed where they shifted the data and cheated.
You have to understand that once you have the most accurate data system in the world glitched, it's no longer useful to us.
Mr. Kennedy, in your opening statement, you introduced us to this word malinformation.
The term malinformation was coined to describe information that Facebook and Twitter and the other social media sites understood was true, but that the White House and other federal agencies wanted censored anyway for political reasons.
If a government can silence criticism, it's a license to commit any other kind of atrocity. You can just sweep all the other rights away and nobody will know about it.
We did generally defer to the government on some of these policies that in retrospect I probably wouldn't, knowing what I know now.
The first right that they took from us at the outset of this pandemic was the right to speak.
Anything that says that vaccines might have side effects, you basically need to take down.
White House Press Secretary Psaki stated, and I quote, "We're in regular touch with these social media platforms."
Facebook should provide publicly and transparently data on the reach of COVID vaccine misinformation, not just engagement, but the reach of the misinformation.
We're flagging problematic posts for Facebook that spread disinformation. Psaki also stated
that we have proposed that they create a robust enforcement strategy.
Create a robust enforcement strategy.
Who's telling you to take down things that
it was
that talk about vaccine side effects?
It was people in the Biden administration.
We've seen many pages of emails between Mr. Flaherty and social media platforms where he relentlessly badgers them to increase the censorship of ordinary Americans' free speech on social media, and he gets results.
Who is Rob Flaherty?
His level is deputy assistant to the president.
These people from the Biden administration would call up our team and scream at them and curse.
You see the platforms agreeing to censor things that are truthful, that do not violate their policies at the behest and at the pressure of the White House.
All these different agencies and branches of government basically just started investigating and coming after our company. It was brutal. It was brutal.
The Virality Project would send reports every single week on everything going on in the United States and even the world that would cause vaccine hesitancy. Little did I know that my moves, everything from the meetings that I was having with Senator Mike Lee, the briefings that we had with Senator Ron Johnson, all of it was being tracked and sent in a lovely little package to brief the White House. Then Robert Flaherty was the one that took that information and told social media who they needed to silence.
And did Mr. Flaherty ever request any reports from social media companies on specific censorship issues?
We see email after email after email from the White House, from Mr. Flaherty, pressuring specifically Facebook, but also other social media platforms to take down disfavored viewpoints. And the emphasis in those emails is on true content.
They pushed us super hard to take down things that were true.
Any truth, any information that just might increase vaccine hesitancy is not allowed.
The true content is what they perceive to be doing the most to undermine the narrative that the White House favored at the time.
Once you start censoring, you're on your way to dystopia and totalitarianism. There's never been a time in history when we look back and the guys who were censoring people were the good guys.
So here we are in Washington, D.C., and the reason that we've come back for a third time is because nothing is happening for those who've been harmed by the COVID vaccines. After a year and a half of struggles and meeting with the FDA, giving them data, going back and forth, and mountains of empty promises, we had a bunch of injured come to Washington, D.C. They paid their way, they sacrificed their health to be here. And
I'm happy to start. I'm Peter Marks, Director of the Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research.
They hid behind a monitor once again.
I really appreciate hearing what we heard today, and we'll continue to work towards trying to understand what is, the safety profile of these vaccines as best as we can. we don't have any secrets here. I take what you said today seriously, and we will continue to work through this. So thank you. Take care. Thanks.
I would like to begin my testimony by detailing the difficulty of its drafting. On June 23, 2021, I went to obtain my second COVID vaccine. I did so because I believed that it was in my best interest to insulate myself and my family. I went as a whole, healthy and optimistic young man. I went and left there a cripple. I was dismissed, insulted, and felt utterly abandoned by the most advanced medical system in the world. My single mother and younger brother have lovingly walked through this journey with me, but I cannot help but recognize that my disability has in many ways expanded to them. We have suffered together through displacement, hospital stays, ambulance rides, specialists, struggling to maintain what normalcy can be availed to us. I could go on. The allotted time is far too short to give full breath to the horrors I've experienced and to all that I have lost. But in my final moments with you, I ask, how long? How long until we are acknowledged? I have faith that something can be done, but we must be willing to look at this. People must be willing to look at us with open eyes and a compassionate heart. Again, I ask, how long?
You know, the FDA, NIH, CDC has chosen to do nothing. In some cases, has actively chosen to censor us.
When I think of the years that I studied in college about medicine and my dreams of practicing medicine, I never, ever in a million years thought that this is how things were. I guess I was just so ignorant to the fact that it's a business. I never thought of medicine as a business. It's not what it's supposed to be about.
We have doctors that have no idea of really our diagnoses. And really there's been no concerted national effort to try to not only give us diagnoses, but let alone develop testing, diagnostics, and treatments. That's where we're left.
What you get when you mix politics and medicine is politics.
These people need to be seen. Side effects are real, not rare. We need to learn from this and never allow this to happen again.
It's hard to tell our stories. It's not easy. But we're going to fight and we're going to stand for truth. Our lives depend on the truth coming out.
You know, I don't have to be out here in the world fighting or trying to protect people, but I do. I choose it. You know, I choose to do that for my son in his honor. You know, because if I don't stand up and speak, who's going to do it? It's just, I feel it's the right thing to do.
The hope in all of this lies in, and this is what the injured keep pushing for, right? Recognition. Because once it's recognized and acknowledged that this is happening, the conversation can start, right?
Dr. Budd, I came to you sick and scared, and you dismissed me. You didn't have the answer, and instead of saying, I'm sorry, I don't know what's wrong with you, you made me feel crazy, like I had made it all up. You dismissed me. Is that your caring profession? Is that healing? No one deserves that kind of treatment, Dr. Budd, no one.
If you look back on all of this and people say, well, why did this happen? What's going on? The easy answer is if you want to know what's going on, follow the money. But if you want to know the truth, look at who's being silenced.
We are a long way from the end of the story. The battle has only just begun.
This movie, it's going to be labeled an anti-vax movie. Anti-vaxxers, trying to gain momentum, trying to kill people, murderers. It's coming. This is what a murderer looks like. I want to go back to what I call normal life. wrap my arms around my kids, tell them I love them, joke with them, skip rocks on a lake, color with them, sing with them, make them food that they'll complain about and not want to eat.
We have a saying in our relationship, and it's no matter what. Through all the struggles and trials, at the end of it, it would always come back to, I choose you, you choose me, no matter what.
You know, someday, Dr. Bud, you're going to be on the other side of the table. And as angry as I am, and as angry as I always will be, I still wish you a better doctor than you were to me.
I'm not going to give up on these people.
I was sitting in the theater when I saw that in Austin the first time, and I remember just thinking that film hit the same way Vax did when we started touring the country. It's a very, very powerful film, very important, I think, to get as many people as we can to see that. I just wanted a big shout out to React 19, who was a producer on that, and many of the people that were involved in the film are with React 19. Mickey Willis, a brilliant job producing that, and Matt Guthrie, I think that was his directorial debut, and you hit it out of the park. Really excellent. That film leaves you with so many different emotions, right? Sadness for the people that have gone through it, rage for the gaslighting and the lies that have gone on, and then just a sense of empowerment that we all have to come together, that we are realizing this together. In this moment, we know something needs to be done, and we need something to do with that. And that is what the Highwire is all about. We are bringing these issues. We had the real Peter Marks, which you can still see online, that lays out in longer detail all of the gaslighting and lying that the FDA went through with Bree Dressen there. You can check that out. We will continue to bring lawsuits on behalf of people that have been injured. We fought for the military. When we were going through COVID, the military that didn't want to get the vaccine, we fought and got them to stay in the military. We've fought ever since. These are things that you don't see that are going on. Many of the cases, sometimes we will be fighting for, a Hasidic Jewish community. These are the things that are going on. We've got to win, and we've got to win big right now. The movie is telling the truth, but we've got to put this now in the courtrooms of America. We've got to win back our religious exemption. We've got to build a fortress right now so big that this can never happen to us again, especially these mandates that forced people into this situation. How many of the people in this story would never have gotten the vaccine except that they were forced to in order to go to work? Those are the things that we're fighting for with Informed Consent Action Network, and I would love it if you would become a donor now. All you have to do is go to the top of the screen, click donate at thehighwire.com, donate to ICANN. We'd love for you to become a recurring donor. That allows us to really have a sense of, the flow of funds and what we can do. We're asking for $25 a month for 2025. If you can give more, please do. If you can only afford $1, a cup of coffee like this. I don't know, what is that now at Starbucks? We're talking about $4.50, $5 a month. Think we can skip one cup of coffee? I'll bet you your nerves would love the break. Anyway, for everyone that has sponsored this show, thank you for all of your support that allows us to bring films like this. I know Mickey Willis also does a lot of work. His films are funded through a nonprofit. It's because of people like you out out there that is making this new media sensation happen, and nonprofits like ours. So I hope you'll keep giving to those people that matter to you and those organizations that are really making a difference in your life and for the future of this country. React 19 is a great place to donate to. At the end of that screening was a Q&A. And that Q&A, was really about how the public is seeing this, what they want from the film, what they think needs to happen at HHS with Bobby Kennedy. In fact, at one moment it got a little bit contentious. Bret Weinstein was the host of the conversation with Mary Talley Bowden, Doug Cameron, Bree Dressen, and Joel Walskog. This is that Q&A that happened after the film. I hope you enjoy it.
And so for all of us here at Texans for Vaccine Choice, I just am so thankful that you came and joined us tonight. Thank you, Dr. Weinstein.
That was quite some film. Am I right? All right. Now the trick here is going to be getting through this without getting choked up. I do not typically cry in public, but there's something about this story that throws me every time I hear it. There's something about what happened to people who did what they were asked, who took these vaccines thinking that they were doing the right thing, found themselves gravely injured, or found that their loved ones were worse than gravely injured. And then not only were they not treated, not only were they told that they were imagining this, but at the point that they tried to help themselves, at the point that they found each other, they were disrupted in their ability to even talk and just understand that what they were experiencing was real and not in their heads. There's something so utterly depraved about keeping innocent, injured people from talking to each other and knowing what was going on with them, that it raises questions in my mind about, well, could a system that is willing to do that to innocent, injured people, was this a mistake, or did they just not care from the beginning? It really raises questions about the entire pandemic for me. So with that, I'm going to try to get out of the way and allow our injured panelists to talk about their experience. And Mary, you of course have had I think you're in a more similar situation to me. You're motivated by watching people suffer and wanting desperately to help them. So can we start with you, Brianne? Can you try to help us understand what it was like to find yourself beyond abandoned and then obstructed in your attempt to just find peace and health?
You know, it's a really strange situation to be in, to be abandoned by everybody. I was incredibly lucky to have my family not turn their back on me as well, because there's an extremely high number of people in our groups that the doctor leads the way and gaslights the patient, and they go home and their family does as well. And those are the people that have the highest risk of suicide in our groups. And that speaks directly to the impact of when you're dealing with something that is as horrific and traumatic as this. They just need validation, and they just need someone to look at them in the eye and make sure that they understand that their suffering is real and that they matter.
So I remember, I couldn't place it in time, you might be able to do it, but you and I had a conversation pretty early on in which you told me about the shutting down of the Facebook groups in which the vaccine injured had finally found each other. And I could almost find, I was driving as we were having our conversation, I could almost find the location where I was when you told me that, because it was just such breathtaking callousness to do such a thing to people who had done nothing wrong. And in any case, it's an honor to meet you these years later and see that you're still fighting courageously. So thank you for doing that. Doug, do you want to tell us a little bit about your experience at the human level and whatever it is that you think is most likely to convey it to us?
Well, I think that one of the best things I did was meet these folks and went to Washington, D.C. with them. It was quite a deal. But like Brienne said, though, I thought I had a lot of friends. But I got a dog, and I got a wife of 42 years, and I got a good boy too, and that's all I need, I guess. I was farm manager, and I was taking care of 45 guys, making sure that they went home to a family and had a job and had work, and they left. When I got out of the hospital, I was fired from my job, and that was pretty devastating to me and to my family. But the loneliness you feel is it's unbelievable. How people could do that to other people, and the doctors the same way. I was never told I was crazy. I think I was pretty adamant when I went in what was wrong. I said, I've been in this body 64 years. I know what the hell's going on, you know, and don't tell me, I'll tell you. And that was kind of, I don't know if that was the best thing, but it was my thing. And, you know, I tried to talk to the doctors, and I'd worked on ranches before I went to my last job, and I was on this one ranch for 25 years, and you take care of cattle and stuff. The cattle that you take care of, the cows, the calves, they can't come up to you and say, hey, I need this or I need that. You gotta kind of watch them and see and help them. And I didn't know everything in the cattle business, and I'd have to call a vet. But it didn't bother me to call a vet and say, I need help. But my doctors, who didn't know what was wrong with me, wouldn't ask for help and try to find out, was there somebody else having the same problem? They didn't know. They weren't connected. The hospitals weren't connected to each other. I come to find out that at the same time I was in the hospital, on the other side of the state was another guy with the same thing, but the doctors never communicated, not one bit. So there was no, you know, connection that way. But I thank you for the movie. I thank you for putting it together, being a part of React 19, and thank you all for coming. And I'm doing okay. Carla and I are doing all right. And I'm here for all the young people. Is who I'm here for. I'm not here for me. My race is kind of over, almost. And it's the young people we need to pay attention to. We do not need these vaccines to injure any more young people, as far as I'm concerned. None. So that's all I can say.
Yeah, just a couple things. One, it hurts to hear you say that you feel alone. I mean, you're in a room full of, I don't know how many people, a few hundred, and I guarantee you that they are all feeling very connected to you at the moment. So you're not alone, and I know tens of thousands of people, maybe hundreds of thousands of people have seen this movie in the last couple hours here, and just please know that we do feel it. And you know that there's a way we say this in English. We say, "There, but for the grace of God, go I." But I don't even like that in this case, because there's no reason it should have been you and not me, right? That's a random event, and I can imagine being in your shoes all too easily, and I'm sorry it happened to you.
Can I tell you one more thing? My wife has a saying, and she put it on her business card. I have business cards, and my wife put it on hers, and it's from the song, Johnny Cash song. And it goes, "You may throw your rock and hide your hand, working in the dark against your fellow man. But as sure as God made black and white, what's done in the dark will be brought to the light."
That's beautiful and right on.
That's Carla and Johnny Cash.
Right.
That's her deal. My deal is I ride horses for therapy, and my deal is the outside of a horse is good for the inside of a man. There you go, right? I'm full of.
All right, Joel. Tell us what we need to know.
Just say that, first of all, if you haven't met Doug Cameron, now you know why we love him. And his awesome wife, Carla. I don't want to take a lot of time. I just want to, first of all, ask you all a non-medical question. Can you believe in this country that this SH blank blank is real? It's unbelievable. But I just want to go back a little bit about our mission. Our mission is not, we don't want your sympathy. Our goal really is to take our negative, and I never used to cry until 4 years ago. It's a true story. Okay, let me get back on track. Our goal is to take our negative reactions and turn into positive action. We say that over and over. We're not just going out here to tell our sad stories for no reason, okay? What do these people want? I mean, what do they deserve? Recognition, right? But they need research done. They need definitions of their syndromes. And I can tell you more, they need definitions of their syndromes, because a diagnosis, okay, is important, because based on your diagnosis leads to treatment. So we need acknowledgement, research, better diagnostics leading to better therapeutics, okay? What else do we need? Okay. But right now, I would tell you that actually doesn't help us, okay? So we don't spend a lot of, I hope other people, and Senator Johnson, I'll be part of a Senate hearing, an official hearing next week with some other medical providers. But for these people, which I serve, and I'm very blessed in my life to serve these people, we're all friends, we're all part of the same family. But the other thing is we need is, one of the big things is compensation reform. Okay, really the CICP, which is a dismal failure. A lot of people say just get rid of the PrEP Act. That's not that easy to do, and we're basically attacking the PrEP Act at the same time as looking at compensation reform. But the really other thing is we just overall need better medical care. If you're lucky enough to see someone like Dr. Bowden or Kat Lindley, and there's a bunch of excellent providers here, it's great, right? Because you can actually get some recognition, and you'll get a diagnosis, hopefully, and at least they'll try and give you care. But they are a fraction of 1% in this country. Most of us, we're treating ourselves, through commiseration, through React 19. So we need better medical care, and the last thing was compensation reform. So that's all I'm going to say. Thank you very much.
So I would add one thing to your list of what we need. And I'm thinking in particular, Ernest, where are you? You must be here somewhere. Oh, he's in the lobby. Well, when I hear Ernest's story, I'm reminded that there's a kind of a sampling bias, that we have the vaccine injured, but that there have been an awful lot of people lost. And, I feel Ernest's story very acutely as a father. I can imagine it, and it's the most terrifying fate that can be. He needs acknowledgement. They killed his son. He needs acknowledgement. No amount of medical insight is going to help him at this point, but he can get the relief of just having others understand what he experienced, having it become part of the record. So I think that's important too, because he's not the only person suffering that fate, and he and all the others deserve it. Mary, can you speak to what this has looked like, watching injured people come through your practice?
Yeah, so I see this, everything in this film, it was just very validating, because I see it, almost every day. If I don't see it directly, I at least hear it from my patients. And so if you follow me on X, you know how frustrated I've been. But the timing of this could not be more perfect, because everybody seems to have moved on, including our new administration. So I'm hoping we can just keep the momentum going, get everybody speaking out, and not give up on the fight. And I have to apologize to you guys on behalf of my profession. I was making small talk with somebody today, and he asked me what I did, and I was embarrassed to tell him I was a doctor. It's just hard to believe. And none of the patients that I have seen, they get the $1 million workup. They're put on antidepressants, anti-anxiety medications, sleeping pills, and they're not reported to VAERS. I was the one that reported all the patients to VAERS. Everything in this film is highly accurate. So, yes.
I've never been a doctor. I didn't go into medicine for multiple reasons, but I appreciate, those of us who aren't doctors are now in a predicament. Those of us who understand what happened. I know that I avoid doctors. It's an absolute last resort. My feeling is basically, if I get into a car wreck, I'm going to the ER, but short of that, you've got to give me a real talking to before I will even face this profession. But you have been courageous. You've stood up. Undoubtedly, you've paid a severe price for doing so, but you've also, therefore, had the experience that I think a lot of doctors are sort of fending off. By pretending it's not happening, they're convincing themselves that it isn't real in some way, and you've walked a different path. I really want to know, what's that like? What do you say when somebody shows up and they have an injury, and you know that A, there's not a lot you can do, and B, that what you can do is a fraction of what you might be able to do because your whole profession is in denial?
Exactly. Yeah, I feel a little bit left out to dry because, I don't have the resources. The NIH needs to step up and research this and give us some solutions, because they're very challenging cases. And I definitely see improvements with what I do, but it's not like giving an antibiotic and they're good to go. It's very challenging. And I don't. If we could get some people with very big microphones to speak up, and courage is contagious. But if Robert Kennedy, if you're listening, now's the time, please.
Well, I will say, in Kennedy's defense, he is now in.
No.
Yeah, no, you gotta. Well, I'm sorry, I'm going to do it anyway. The fact is, he has been drafted into a game none of us know how to play. And it's a very difficult game, and he is undoubtedly tormented by having to...
25,000 children a day are getting these shots. 25,000 a day.
Yeah, but
there's just no excuse.
But I will tell you, as of today, the Wall Street Journal is reporting that the administration is not going to recommend that these shots stay on the childhood vaccine schedule, which has very important implications. It says, A, we are succeeding, B, we haven't been abandoned, and C, the Trump administration is coming around, which is something that I was told at the beginning would not happen. So I don't like waiting either, and I don't like the idea that every day we wait that more people are going to be injected and brought into the ranks of the vaccine injured. I don't like it any better than you do, but I know that in the end, the important thing is that we staunch the bleeding.
Well, so my thing is, though, what is the harm in putting the pressure on them as intensely as we can? I mean, that doesn't do any harm.
No,
Giving them this, yes, we trust you, we'll be quiet. I just don't think I think we just press them. I mean, what's the downside to that?
The downside of that is that the Trump administration digs in its heels and doesn't respond at all.
Well,
and so
you think they'll fire Kennedy?
Well, I think Kennedy needs support or he's dead in the water. So, yeah, please do.
There's obviously, different lessons that we've learned being injured and dealing with the chronic illness, right? And we've learned that we've had to exist in a very small window all the time, right? We can't look at and depend on the government to fix all of our problems. We also can't look at, the doctors to fix all of our problems. One of the biggest lessons that I've learned, and I think Joel would agree, Doug the same, the answers and the solutions are within. We don't need to depend on the government. We, every single person in this room, we're here with passion, resolve. We have the capability to make change happen.
And holistic care.
Out there that are not medical doctors that are addressing these kinds of cases. And the fact that medical doctors refuse to work with them is part of the problem. There's a huge community of people that are coming.
Yep, it's true. There's a lot that can be done, and there is a lot more that can be done if we study the problem and come to understand it.
If we had a huge government grant to devote to the research, I mean, that could go a long way.
Talk to these people. You don't need a huge medical grant. This kind of arrogance is part of the problem.
Look, we are better off. We are better off if we have information on what these syndromes are. Part of what's going on is that the nature of these vaccines, and it was touched on in the film, but the nature of these vaccines is to do body-wide damage. The range of symptoms is incredibly broad because of the nature of these vaccine platforms. And so, yes, it is very important that people find the strength in themselves. It is also very important that we begin to take this seriously as a medical problem, study it, and figure out what the proper remedies are. That's job one. Job two is making sure that we learn the lesson from this properly. Because if we don't learn the lesson of this properly, all of the other biologics that are being formulated on these platforms are going to do this again and again and again. So let us not decide that the solution is this or is that. We can't depend on the government. We learned that lesson during COVID, but we would be much better off if it was on our side. So we do have to allow people who are learning to play this governmental game to do their job so that we can bring all the power to bear that's necessary to address the massive crisis that they created. All right, we have a few more minutes. Maddie DeGarry is not here tonight, unfortunately. I think it's extremely difficult for her to travel, but I'm very sorry that she isn't here because she obviously can tell a part of this story that no one else can. She had her childhood stolen from her and is going to face consequences from this for the rest of her life. Bree, you know her well. Can you speak on her behalf? Tell us something about what she's facing and what you expect to happen.
Yeah, so the taping on this wrapped in 2023. The vast majority of it wrapped the end of 2022. And so that's a long time ago. This little girl, she was 12 years old. She's now 16. Her childhood home in Cincinnati, Ohio, she hasn't lived there for the last year. She's been living full-time in a Ronald McDonald house in Florida with her mom, separated from the rest of her family and her dogs and her friends, spending every single day in physical therapy, intensive. This is something that she could be getting in Ohio, and she can't get it there because all of Ohio's children's clinics and the hospitals are controlled by the Cincinnati Children's Hospital, which was the main place where the Pfizer clinical trial rolled out. So she literally had to change where she lives to get essential medical care because of the gross medical malpractice on all of her doctor's part for years. That kid is dealing with very permanent injuries. She's fighting like hell to regain her life. And she's an inspiration to every single one of us old farts out here dealing with the same crap. Because I have never met another person in this entire experience with more tenacity and more of a will to just fight this than her. She's an inspiration to us. She's an inspiration to the whole country.
Yeah, she's a beautiful person, and I think there's a way that her story, because children are by definition innocent, her story conveys the message in some ways better than the others. I will also just say you used the term medical malpractice, and I think it's appropriate because you applied it to her doctors. But that we in this movement have to realize that many, including the people who ran the trials that you were injured in, that Maddie was injured in, are guilty of something beyond malpractice. They're guilty of depraved indifference, and there's both a legal difference and an important implication of that a willingness to harm others and to callously pretend that that isn't what happened is a different level of crime, and our priority must be to get those who face that depraved indifference all of the help and compassion that we can arrange. That's one. And the other job is to make sure that we add as few new people to those ranks as is humanly possible. And I think that's, in some sense, what's, I hesitate to say it, but driving you crazy, Mary, is... Wait.
Whoa.
Okay, all right. I didn't mean that in any personal way. It would drive any rational person crazy. It's driving, yes, well, we are all trying to figure out in what way to deal with an unthinkable situation. We're dealing with an atrocity, right? How does one deal with an atrocity? Do you become strategic in order to reduce the chances that the atrocity will continue? Do you say atrocities are atrocities and you should shout at the top of your lungs? I don't know that either one of these
Do you know the strategy?
Do I know the strategy?
Yes.
Well, I don't think we have one as a coordinated community, and I think that's...
Do you know Robert Kennedy's strategy?
No. Do you?
No. So I am assuming there isn't one, which is why I think we need to be, assume there is none.
Well, I wouldn't...
I talked to some members of the team, and there is a strategy happening in the next few months.
The problem is...
Do you know how many kids are going to get the shot in the next few months?
Yeah, the emergency use authorized it. Come on.
So...
By Congress.
I don't want us to get distracted by the question of strategy. We are here talking about the profound injuries that people have suffered. But to the extent that there's a strategy, if you think that they can share it with us openly in public and have it be as effective as it would be if they deploy it, then you don't really understand strategy. And so I can't say that I know what it is, but I can say that we are in a better position today. We've just discovered this is coming off the childhood vaccine schedule, which not only is that profoundly important from the point of view of protecting children, but it is also profoundly important from the point of view of exposing the people who did this to the liability that they need to face. Because when a vaccine, and this isn't one, but they've decided to define it that way, when a vaccine is on the childhood schedule, that gives immunity to the company that produced it for the adult injections as well. So this has a profound importance. Don't underrate the victory that we have won here. I agree with you. This isn't nearly far enough, but it's a big step in the right direction. So I don't like waiting any better than you do, I think, but in the end, we need to get there, and maybe going great guns at this moment against the people who are trying to do it isn't the ideal strategy.
I respectfully disagree, so there.
Fair enough. All right, any final comments? Joel, Brianne, Doug?
I would like to say, keep doing that. I would like to say thanks so much to each one of you for taking the time out of your busy lives to come and see this film and just experience a little bit of what we've been dealing with for the last 4.5 years, every minute of every day. I know that you guys have a lot of things that you can be doing with your hard-earned cash, and it really humbles me, it humbles Joel, and everyone at our organization to know that you guys would be willing to come and support this. One of the things that we always do at React 19 is we lead with one principle in mind, and that principle is love. Love is what can bind us together. Love is what can help us all through hard times, but it's also, we can fight through love and we can beat this. We don't have to get seeped into different principles and ideals and, get stuck in these different camps. All we have to do is remember what we saw today and remember the faces of the people that are impacted by every single one of our decisions. And just remember that love wins. And if we do this together, we absolutely will win.
That's beautiful. Doug, you look like you have something to say.
I'd just like to thank the people from Texas for having us. I'm from Idaho, and you're welcome my place anytime, So it's been quite a trip for me, and I appreciate the chance to be here, and God bless you all.
All right, well, we appreciate you, Doug. And
for all of us that want more pressure put on the decision makers, the policy makers, the people that can really make a difference here, the one way that we do it, share this movie far and wide.
In the film, be brave. You'll get pushback, but my recommendation is shoot for getting canceled. Okay, it's the best thing ever. It's the truth shall set you free. Trust me, I got canceled in 2020, and my life has never been better ever since. Get out there and share this movie, please. Thank you for being here.
I have one last question for Doug here. I've been told that you have a song of the day. Can you share it with us?
Oh, well, I don't know which song. When I was got out of the hospital, people were so good to me, and I tried to thank everybody I could, and I gave them song of the day, and song of the day would be whatever my song of the day was. And I try to think of songs, and one of the songs I was mentioning today was Charlie Pride, I'm Just Me. It's and I got a whole list of songs, and another one. Now you need to write these down because just a couple pretty good ones, and I'm trying to think the guy's name. Cargill is his name, and
Any music buffs that can help fill in?
he wrote the song in the 50s, and God dang it, I had it.
Somebody have Google Cargill?
Henson Cargill is his name, and listen to the children as they play. Ain't it kind of funny what the children say? That's the song. And I always said that the children are us and the parents are the government. And I'm trying to think what that song is. Henson, Skip a Rope, that's it, yeah. And if you listen to that song and you put in perspective that the government is the parents and listen to your children and we are the children, is how I kind of like that song. And I like to sing Walking in the Sunshine.
Oh, that's a good one.
Is a Roger Miller song, and one day, if I don't walk in the sunshine in Texas, I'll be walking with Jesus. So that's kind of how I look at it.
Amen.
All right, well, an amazing debate there in some conversations about how much pressure we should really be putting on HHS, Bobby Kennedy, a conversation we're having all the time. That's the beauty of a free country. Imagine there's countries that can't even play a film like Follow the Silenced. So tomorrow, as you celebrate 4th of July, let's celebrate the freedoms that we have. That bullet that we all missed when we had a party that was saying that they didn't care about free speech any longer, that they were going to end misinformation from the mouths of the very people that censored the Highwire, that censored Plandemic and Mickey Willis and so many voices like ours. We lost our YouTube channel. We lost our Facebook channel throughout COVID. Freedom was hanging in the balance, and you and me and all of us came together and said, not on our watch. This moment of putting Robert Kennedy Jr. into as HHS Secretary, that is a Boston Tea Party moment. This is a disruption that they didn't expect to happen. Doesn't mean we're not going to take our eye off the prize, but they know we're here now. They know we mean business. They know this medical freedom movement counts. Donald Trump knows that it votes, and so does the Democratic Party. And as long as they keep avoiding taking care of their constituency and fighting for body sovereignty, they're going to have a hard time celebrating the 4th of July the way that we will tomorrow. This was a year of victory. It doesn't mean America's perfect. We are as perfect as we are diversified. We are as diversified as we are unique and independent. That is what makes this country great, and I am so excited to celebrate tomorrow everything and every part of our voice that rang across the world over these last few years. We're going to keep telling the truth on the Highwire as long as it's legal, and probably even then, until they throw us in jail. Until then, I'll see you next week on the Highwire.